Hi guys, my name's Jake. Welcome to the Lock Expo today in Nottingham. Today I'll be talking you through the lishi 2-in-1 pick and decoding tool. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking about the characteristics of the tool. We're going to be talking how the tool operates and how we use it. So first things first, what I'm going to introduce you to is the VA2T. This lishi tool belongs to the French, and this will predominantly open citrons. So for example, citron bilingos. If somebody have citron bilingo vans, this tool will open a few of them. So yeah, let's get on and talk about the VA2T. So the VA2T is what we're going to be demonstrating with today, along with a couple of other leashes. This will help us learn the characteristics, and it's going to give me a good chance to be able to show you how to open a lock with this specific tool, because it's one of the easiest of its group. So at the top we have the VA2T, as it says. That is a Silka Blank reference. So when we talk about leashes, we're always talking about the Silka Blank reference. You can have JMA references, or you can have Silka Blank references. For example, when talking about leashes, it's always the Silka Blank reference. VA2T. Next to it, it will tell you what version of the VA2T it is. So this is the version 3 of this tool. This will say 2-in-1 pick, which means it will pick the lock and decode. This is what we call a tension arm. This is what we use to turn the lock clockwise or anti-clockwise when picking. This is what we call a lever arm, and this will move the wafers up and down, and also decode once you've picked the lock open. So as you can see, the chart has numbers. So each one of these numbers is a wafer position chart. So this will tell you how many wafers this specific lock has. So as you can see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's 6 wafers in these in this lock in total. So every chamber has one wafer. One wafer there, 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 one wafer there. That's one chamber, that's 2 chambers, 3, 4, 5 and 6. On this tool itself, this will tell you exactly what it will do, so what its capabilities are. So this has the capabilities of opening or turning the ignition, the door and the boot lock. Let's say up there, ignition, door and boot. Some might just say ignition, some might just say door and boot. But this specific tool will do the ignition, the door and the boot. Going vertical of the tool, you have the depth. So this is the depth of the cut. So once you get onto decoding, if you need to decode, these are the depths that you're going to type into your key machine, and it will cut you a key for this lock. So for argument's sake, if we had the lock picked open and we turned it to its full rotation, and we was to lift up the lever arm on wafer position 1, and it went right to the top, right where that tip is there, that wafer position 1 would decode as an A. You'll type that into your key machine, it will cut you an A in wafer position 1. So now what we're going to do, we are going to find out where the wafers are in the lock and what way the wafers move in the lock in order to help us pick the lock. The lishi is fully inserted into the lock. First, what I'm going to do is I'm going to find my position 1 and my position 6. So this has a total of 6 wafers in the lock. I'm going to find a position 1 and a position 6. By doing this, we must depress the lever on and feel for the spring. As you can see, I'm only stroking. I can use this tool. I'm only stroking and we're getting some spring back. I know that wafer position 1 is on the bottom. We'll go to wafer position 2. Getting spring back again just by stroking. I also can tell from this tool that we're not quite within the lines. So this lock must be an aftermarket lock because it doesn't quite line up with the actual lines. So I know when I'm picking just to go behind it, to make sure that this tip there just behind the line. And you can see we're getting that spring. Over to position 3 and it just drops down. We know, one from looking at the chart, that 6 and 3 are totally different to 1, 2, 4 and 5. This is dead in this position, which means if we go up, so 3 is up. We're going to go over to wafer position 4. I'm getting spring on position 4. We're going to go over to 5. I'm getting spring on position 5. I'm going to go over to number 6. Dead. So once again, we know that it's going to be on the top. Getting there. I know that I'm fully inserted into the lock because I had spring on position 1, I had spring on position 6. I also know that none of the wafers are damaged because I'm getting spring on each and every single wafer that's in its chamber. What this allows me to do now is proceed and pick the lock. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to put some tension on. I'm going to move my lever arm back and I'm just going to touch the lever arm. I'm not going like that and depressing it down, I'm just stroking the top. You'll see that it's giving me some feedback. What we're doing is we're looking for the binders. So if it's springing like such, it doesn't need to be depressed. What we're going to do is we're going to solely look for the binders. So we're going to go to number 2, stroke, stiff. So we're going to use our pinch technique. We're going to press, depress, tap, we have some spring. I'm going to miss number 3 because I know that 3 is on the top. I'm going to go straight to wafer position 4, make sure I'm on. 4 is solid. Stroking in, nothing. I'm going to use my pinching technique. I can let off a little bit of tension if I need to. Counter rotation, bang, that's dropped. We're getting some spring. I'm going to go to wafer position 5. I'm going to stroke. I'm getting some spring. So I'm not pushing, I'm not being hard with him, I'm just being very gentle with him. I'm keeping my tension on. Nice and stringy. I'm going to go to number 6. I'm getting some movement on the bottom. It's not solid. I can feel a little bit of spring. I'm only using my fingertip. I'm getting a little bit of spring from there. He doesn't need touching. This is very important, guys, that you're using a really light touch to find where these bouncing wafers are. Number 3 is stiff, so I'm going to use my pinch technique. Pick number 3 nice and controlled. I'm not ramming him up, I'm doing it nice and controlled. I'm releasing a little bit of tension if I need to. Sorry, I'm miles off there. I'm releasing a little bit of tension if I need to. You can see number 3 now is springing. Number 1 is springing. Number 2 is solid again. So I'm going to pick, click, springing. And we're back to our number 4, springing. Go back to our number 5, springing. 6 is springing. 3 is springing. 1 is now binding. Rotation on the core, so we know we're going in the right direction. Rotation on the core. 1 is springing. 1 is tested. So we're testing these after each one. Number 2 is now gone solid, so chances are that number 2 is an anti-pick notch. 2 is now solid. Pick. 2 is now springing. 4 is springing. 5 is springing. 6 is springing. 3 is springing. 1 has gone solid. I'm going to pick number 1. I'm going to turn the lock. So the lock is now turned. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to decode the lock. I'm going to depress the tension tool as much as I can in the clockwise position. He won't go any further. I'm going to absorb all the spring. Number 1 is decoding as A. Number 2 is decoding as A. Number 4 is decoding as a D. Number 5 is decoding as a E. 6 at the top is decoding as a E. 3 is decoding as a D. And that's it. That's all 6 picked and decoded. What I'm going to do now is just release. And that, gentlemen, is how we pick our lishi 2-in-1s. Arm all the way back. Tool locked. Sorry, tension arm locked in. I'm going to hold and I'm going to simply pull out. To insert the tool, we must do exactly the same. We must pull the lock back, pull the lever arm back, lock it off, make sure it's nice and central. What you don't want is you don't want the feeler arm, the feeler tip, sorry, to be out. Because all that's going to do is not allow the tool to go in. This has got to be all the way back, nice and neutral. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert the lock, insert the tool into the lock, sorry. Same again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to number 6, spring, number 1, spring. That tool is fully inserted. Then you start your procedure. 1 springing, 2 springing, 4 springing, 5 springing, 6 springing, 3 springing.